I've played an ungodly amount of hours in Honkai Star Rail. I feel like I have a decent amount of characters. By the way, I took a small break in Penacony, which is why I don't have most of those characters, and I honestly loved the game. I don't think there's a single other gacha game out there with better designed characters than Honkai Star Rail. I mean, just look at Castries. It's insane. Not to mention, version 3.1 just dropped with a fake collab in the works. But that doesn't mean the game is without its problems, and I always believe in constructive criticism. So now we're here to answer the question, is Honkai Star Rail worth playing? The most important part of any game to me is the story. It hooks me in and makes me want to play even more. Now, the way I'm doing this is first give the pros and then the cons. In the beginning, the story was amazing, the way we get introduced to the cast and the world we land on entrenched in snow, journeying through a young city. That's beside the fact that the concept of Star Rail lends itself to tell all kinds of stories. It could be wilder shifts of tone than different nations since we're working with different worlds altogether. Version 1 was awesome, a great story, really good pacing, and the world itself being frozen over is such a cool idea. Also, the payoff, the final boss, and the music were all peak cinema. Version 1.5 I think is when we visit the Jiaoju Lofu, I don't know how to really say it, which was alright in my eyes. The world itself wasn't very unique, but the story told there was pretty good. Nothing groundbreaking, but solid for a gacha game. The characters were amazing though, especially with the inclusion of the Stellaron Hunters, how their story intertwines with the MC. Penacony started off amazing. It came out with the biggest of booms. The music, the videos, the announcement trailer, and the story itself was really something else. Like that red text with Acheron, the dream world. I mean, there were so many interesting plot points the game could have followed through on. But
it's the biggest piece of dog shit.
The longer the story went on, the more they kind of just fumbled it, which sucks because it didn't start bad. But I think it had a lot of pacing issues. It just took forever for things to happen. Now compared to version 2.0, version 3.0 was not as big of a start. It was pretty okay, don't get me wrong, I just don't think it had the hype going into it as Penacony did. I think it felt slower since again Star Rail has even more pacing issues now. But overall, I think it's a really solid story so far, and I really liked 3.1. I think they did a pretty good job with it. The cinematic moments are always pretty stellar, and the characters so far are pretty likable. Okay, now that I got all the good stuff out of the way, let's talk about the bad, and things I wish I could see change in. Now, I know this is already being implemented, but a skip button would be amazing because the side quests are stronger than melatonin. Just look at the backlog I have, and I can't bring myself to do them until I can skip through the silence. I know it's too much to have everything voiced since the VAs were on strike. Oh, I forgot to mention, having the main cast not being voiced in major launch is definitely something that took the wind out of the story. I had to swap to the JP version just to kind of enjoy it. The still panels of any image kind of sucks, especially with the big budget they have behind them. I know some of them just last too long, and I think I'd be fine with them if they were only there for a moment, or maybe there were more than just one picture. And oh, I know I mentioned this before, but the pacing. I swear, they need to shorten things that didn't need to be said or stop using terms no one cares about. I hate when games just drop 5 new made-up terms back to back since it just muddles the understanding of the story. Luckily, I feel like the story is still one of the stronger points in Honkai Star Rail even if it's been lagging behind as of recently. Imagine if at the start of 3.0 the MC got a new skin, new hairstyle, everything is actually voiced. I think that alone would have given the game the huge boost it needed and it would feel fresher and more exciting. Oh, and one last thing would be just more modernizing framing. Like, I understand the camera being still while 2 characters move from pose 1 to pose 2, but imagine if there was actual camera work. I mean, Wuthering Waves does it pretty well with its interesting angles and movement, and I feel like Honkai Star Rail with its immense budget could do just the same or even better. I mean, just imagine if there were even small zoom-ins and camera shifts mid-dialogue, it would make it that much more engaging. Really quick, it would be super cool if you liked the video, and if you subscribe, I'll bake you some cookies. As a small, tiny, insignificant creator like me, it would mean the world. The next thing I want to talk about is the combat. I personally really like turn-based combat, especially because Honkai Star Rail has such well-designed characters and flashy looking abilities. It's kind of like better Persona in a way, at least when it comes to how the combat presents itself. The meta and the strength of characters is something we can get into later. The combat is, yeah man, it's pretty good. I like the skill system, I love how it flows, and I think the enemy design is really cool, especially the new ones. Their animations and how they look is pretty amazing. The game's only gotten better since the beginning. I realized as I'm writing this that there isn't much to say other than the combat is super good. It really comes down to if you like turn-based games or not. Now the cons. Oh boy. It mostly has to do with power scaling. The biggest issue with making enemies in gacha game is every character has a limit. It's not like an MMO where if the game introduces a new boss, it drops newer and stronger gear so that you also can get stronger. Instead, in a gacha game, if the boss gets stronger, it just takes longer and longer and longer for you to fight it, since you don't really scale with the boss. This is most obvious in the MOC where a team with Acheron, which isn't even the Apex character anymore, which somehow blows my mind, can clear a side 4 to 5 times faster than my Jingliu team, which sucks since when Jingliu came out, she was the best. It's crazy to look back and see that she's been outpaced by that much, you know? It's also hilarious to me that in Wuthering Waves or even I think Genshin Impact, you can clear the endgame with 4-star characters. I mean, I know for a fact in Wuthering Waves you can clear all of endgame with 4 stars, but I heavily doubt you could do that in Honkai Star Rail. I know they're rolling out with buffs, but I wish they had a little more to give in that department. I just feel like the game slowed down a lot since the beginning. Now there's a game called Epic 7, which is essentially just a PvP game, but there's something they do that I really like. They definitely do have power creep, but one thing they do to bring older characters back is something called exclusive equipment. If you remember the analogy I gave with MMOs, the older characters essentially need an extra piece of equipment. In Epic 7, this exclusive equipment could change the way characters played, kind of like how they plan to make Silver Wolf's ult AoE. I think Reverse 1999 also has a system where you can upgrade older characters, giving them better abilities and such to try and bring them closer to the newer characters. And I think some sort of system like this is the best way to bridge the power gap without just straight up buffing them, which probably is the best and easiest way to implement the change. Alright, that's the combat and story out of the way. The rest, I'll just put in some sort of bullet point structure. I love the fact that they keep old events in a separate tab. That is amazing. The rewards they give out are pretty solid, and I can't hate on that. There is so much lore locked behind the simulated universe, it's insane. And it's debatably about the most interesting parts of the story too, but it's explained in the most boring possible way. Unvoiced scrolling on the side. I'll say this now, I just can't read long blocks of text with no voice acting. I stopped reading years ago and Star Rail isn't making me start again. The endgame modes are pretty fun though, and there's so much of it to do. You can also just break the game here, which is something I love doing. Also, this part reminds me of Persona even more because of its stylistic menu. The quality of life in Honkai Star Rail is pretty good though. They have built-in guides, filters, and teleporting around to resources you need almost instantly. Honestly, they have about everything you can need and more. The only thing I would want is artifact loadouts. Even though for some reason each set is pretty much tailored to every new unit, and please, for the love of God, make it so we can jump. I promise you if they announced that we could jump and we're getting an MC skin in version 3.0, it would have exploded the internet. And honestly, I think that's pretty much everything I wanted to talk about. Honkai Star Rail is a good game. What brought it down is the insane power creep and pacing issues with the story. They have a really solid base here, and the reason I want to see more from the company is because they are the top dogs in the industry. They set the standard. If their standard is high, it forces other games to reach that standard too, to stay competitive. I want Genshin Impact, Wuthering Waves, Honkai Star Rail all to be better since that forces all of them to keep innovating. It benefits us as the players. Imagine it, a game with the best of all three would be the best game on the market, wouldn't it? Anyway, I played Wuthering Waves for 100 days in version 2.0, so if you want to see that, subscribe, and until next time, I hope to see you there.